On the West Ham Weekly on Monday night, I talked a lot about Ruben Amorim, the head coach of Sporting Lisbon, that West Ham United have an apparent interest in order to replace David Moyes at the end of this season. The rumours have gotten stronger and stronger. Sky Sports and various other social media and newspapers and reporters have all reported on the same thing. That the rumour is that he was on a private jet chartered by West Ham on Monday, coming into London to talk to the West Ham board about a potential job offer. And the understanding is that if there is a job offer, that Amorim would be very interested to take in that role. Now, as always, I do try to get all the stories and rumours corroborated, but as of yet, for this one, I mean, this is Tuesday morning now, and for all I know, maybe by the time this goes out, the rumours would have got stronger. Maybe something will have been corroborated. But up at the time of recording this, which is late on Monday night, I still haven't had that affirmation yet. But it's an interesting story nonetheless. What I've been told is that Ruben Amorim is indeed of interest to West Ham United, with the potential for him to be the next coach to replace David Moyes at the end of this season. He is one of the most sought-after managers in Europe, and West Ham have him high on their list of potential candidates for head coach. Now, the 39-year-old head coach of Sporting has also been linked with a Liverpool job, especially after Xabi Alonso stated that he was staying at Bayer Leverkusen for at least another season. So the rumour has been that Liverpool could be looking at replacing Jurgen Klopp with Amorim as well. But apparently, West Ham have had internal discussions between the board members that they actually wish to appoint Amorim if David Moyes leaves when his contract ends at the end of this season. And herein lies the big if. Now, if Moyes does leave, because as yet no decision has actually been made by either Moyes or Steidten, depending on who you believe has got full control of this. If you remember, back in February, David Moyes said, or even earlier than that, David Moyes said that there was a contract on the table for him and that he would be the one to decide whether he was going to stay or go. Now, things have changed since then. 4 wins in this calendar year alone has certainly had its toll. We're out of Europe as well. We're kind of sliding a little bit down the Premier League from the positions that we've held throughout the whole season. So things aren't quite the same as they were as when West Ham United offered this contract to Moyes. Now, also, there'll be a big decision made by Tim Steidten. It'll be Sullivan and Steidten, we understand, who are going to make the decision on what happens with the future head coach or manager or whatever you want to call it at West Ham. There have been other options suggested. For example, Lopetegui, Julian Lopetegui, who once managed Wolverhampton Wanderers, is another name that has been mentioned. But the understanding is that Lopetegui could sort of put himself out of the running because not only will he want a massive wage for himself, he will also want a big war chest to bring in quite a lot of players. I mean, I know we need a lot of players, but he might want more money than West Ham will be able to afford to accommodate him. So why Amorim? Why him? What will he bring to West Ham United that other managers may not? Well, let's look at his background a little bit and get an idea of the man himself. He played for Portuguese clubs Belenense, Benfica and Braga as a central midfielder, and also moved to Qatari club Al Wakra during his playing career. And he finished his playing career there. He retired at the age of 37 in 2017, and he started his managerial career at third division Portuguese side Casa Pia. His managerial career didn't really start very well because He didn't have all his Portuguese Football Federation badges, and he was actually banned for a year because he was suspended for a year for delivering instructions during a match without the required completion of his badges. Casapia were also fined and threatened with a points deduction as well. Amorim had to quit, but the team he left behind still won promotion at the end of that season. Amorim then rejected a job offer to take charge of the B team of his boyhood club, Benfica. Instead, he became manager of the B team of Braga, and in September 2000, which was in September 2019. He won 7 of his first 8 games and 3 months later became manager of the first team following the sacking of Ricardo Sapinto. Amorim's impact for both the B team and the senior team was described as nothing short of tremendous. His personality and the way he the way he worked, showed early signs that he could become a top coach. Amorim won 8 of the 9 league games he managed for Braga. And these were noticeable victories as well over teams like Porto, Sporting Lisbon, and Benfica. He won the Portuguese League Cup, which was Braga's first trophy since 2016. But despite that success to Braga, he left in 2020 when he was appointed head coach of Sporting. But in order to sign him from to Sporting, they had to pay a 10 million euro release clause. That's how much they valued him at Braga. Since his appointment, Amorim has won the Portuguese League Cup twice and is set to win his second title with Sporting this coming season. Sporting are currently 10 points clear of Benfica, so it's no wonder he's a man in demand and he would be possibly attainable this summer. He's got a release clause in his current contract of something like around 15 million euros, a relatively modest fee, some may argue, for such a highly rated manager. But there is the caveat that he hasn't really tested himself outside Portugal yet. So what are his strengths? What will Amorim bring to the table? Well, he primarily sets his team up in a 3-4-3 formation based on a high possession that looks to work the ball through the thirds in a careful, considered manner. Although this season's arrival of striker Victor Gyökeres from Coventry City has given them a strong threat up at the top of the field. Amorim's wingbacks hold more fixed positions to maximize width on the pitch. So players like Santos and Katamo kind of hug the sidelines in order to stretch opposition teams. He's a coach who communicates with everyone, giving them a sense of togetherness, which would not only include the players, but also the staff, the admin staff, backroom staff, and so on. And he's good at creating a winning feel around the team, a winning mindset that it permeates throughout the whole team. Very different from kind of the things that we hear about David Moyes, who seems to be quite insular, only talks to the players that he has a preference for, seems to isolate, or from what we hear, seems to isolate other players and doesn't create that sense of community that Amorim seems to do so. Despite having a very strong personality, he doesn't allow this to have a negative impact on those around him. He's quite engaging. And the relationships that he builds at the club are integral to the club heading in the same direction. His communication skills are second to none, which is a great attribute to his coaching style. Amorim's setup is completely different to David Moyes' preferred 4-2-3-1 formation. As we know, West Ham United under David Moyes try to play the counter-attacking football and often have an awful lot less possession than their opponents. West Ham have only won, as I've said, only 4 games in this calendar year. And And of those victories against Wolves, Freiburg, Everton, and Brentford, Moyes' side had less possession against all those teams. Where Moyes is all about hard working without the ball, Amorim is all about possession and what his team can do with the ball. Amorim asks his players to press high up the pitch and squeeze the play by often bringing his centre backs to the halfway line, both traits that are far less common to see from a side like David Moyes. Primarily because Amorim has got that influence, that style of football, but Moyes also, he's got a more defensive mindset. We sit a lot deeper. We've seen it happen so many times. And also our players don't necessarily have the acumen when you have a player like Zuma, who can't turn very quickly. Playing a lot further upfield would cause us a hell of a lot of problems. Amorim is also quite accustomed to giving youngsters a chance, something that we know or get frustrated by David Moyes not doing. For example, he's used Nuno Mendes in his time at Sporting, Gelson Fernandes, Matthias Nunes, Eduardo Quaresma, and Thiago Thomas all featured under him. Mendes was sold to Paris Saint-Germain for a fee of £34 million in May 2022. While, as we know, Nunes went to Wolverhampton Wanderers for a club fee of £42 million in August of the same year. And last summer, he joined Man City for a fee of £53 million. So what's all the excitement about Amorim? What's his ambitions? What's he aiming to achieve as a coach, as a manager? Sporting, for example, when he joined them, were kind of in decline before Amorim arrived. He transformed the club to oversee quite a big change in their success. He brought additions like, as we know, Victor Gyökeres from Coventry City last summer, who has been an absolute revelation for 20 million euros, an absolute revelation for his side this season. He brought other players in like Usmando Diomande, Francisco Trincao. He's got that acumen for spotting really decent talent. Gyökeres, for example, has scored 38 goals in 45 appearances for Sporting this season. And an eye for a striker would really suit West Ham United, given our struggles of trying to get a replacement striker or a decent striker for so many years, or even one recently to replace Mikel Antonio. Porto and Benfica dominated the Portuguese league, before Amorim went to Sporting and won the title in 2020-21 season, their first championship since the 2001-2002 season. Sporting know that at some point in his career, Amorim is destined to join a top club in one of the big five leagues around Europe. But Amorim's aim is not just to go to any club for an easy life. He demonstrated that when he was offered a job at a successful club like Benfica, where he opted for the unfancied role at Sporting instead. He wants to join a club that has an ambitious project. And with Tim Steidten also talking about this ambitious long-term project at West Ham United, maybe West Ham, at this moment in time in Amorim's career, could be the perfect club for him. There's no denying that he's an extremely ambitious coach who would want to win big trophies, but cutting his teeth along the way at a club like West Ham could be a great stepping stone for his ambition to flourish. If the board were to appoint Amorim, he would be the youngest coach that they've appointed. It'd be quite a shift in the whole approach of the board. You know, they tried and tested and often failed appointments of the likes of Manuel Pellegrini, who was 64 when he joined us. David Moyes was 55 when he joined us. Sam Allardyce was 56 when he joined us. And the youngest up until now was Slaven Bilic, who was 46 when he joined us. So at 39, if Amorim was to be appointed, it would be quite a big shift in the way that West Ham United's board perceive what kind of coach they want, what kind of manager they want for the future. But if this is the small word again with a big impact, if David Moyes does leave at the end of the season, Amorim would indeed be an attractive, young, and high-profile proposition. As I've said, he gives youngsters an opportunity, which will be music to the ears of just about every West Ham fan, especially with our historic academy of football. Moyes has struggled to give young players proper game time. He's given many of the academy players debuts, but debuts in games that either didn't matter or small bit part roles, whereas Amorim trusts the young players under him, and he will give them an opportunity to demonstrate what they're capable of. And as I've mentioned, even looking at players coming through and then being sold for a very decent profit on top of that. Now, if David Moyes does leave, then obviously it would be someone like Amorim that West Ham United should be going for. And the pressure will probably be less at West Ham than it would be at Liverpool. And don't get me wrong, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's not that we shouldn't have ambition just like Liverpool, etc. But the expectation at Liverpool will be Champions League, winning the league, etc., etc. Whereas West Ham United, getting back regularly into Europe, maybe pushing for a Champions League place after Europa League and finishing in top six, etc., should be the ambition, the next step, regular step that we should be going for. So the expectation levels, if Amorim went to somewhere like Liverpool, would be quite high. And maybe Amorim wouldn't want to jump into any hot seat until he felt ready to do so, which is why West Ham United could be an ideal place for him to go next in his career. Now, I know we don't like the thought of anyone using like a player or manager or anything like that, using West Ham as a stepping stone. But if we got, 3 or 4 years out of Amorim, and along with it comes success, so that it attracts more managers or head coaches of the same sort of higher caliber, then I guess we would kind of accept that. Of course, with the Portuguese league being in the bag and the lure of Champions League football forthcoming for Sporting, Amorim could also stay at Sporting and decide not to move anywhere. But let's hope that persuasive Tim Steidten will convince him that joining West Ham in this rebuild project is the right move for him. Because if it brings success at a club like West Ham, it would only surely lead for him to have interest in Europe's elite clubs. And that will be a win-win for both Amorim and West Ham United. It will bring success to West Ham United. We will be a better proposition for future for players, for managers, etc. And it will also give Amorim the status that he might want in order to go and succeed at a bigger club in Europe.